Hey everybody, this is Brian with the Gospel Project, and I'm here today with Jeremy, who leads the Gospel Project for Kids team. Aaron is behind the camera. He's usually on this side, but he is crouching right behind it right now. And if you could see, if we could just zoom right through these walls, Dr. Tom Rainer's office is just right through there, just to kind of give you a context of where we are here at Lifeway's headquarters in beautiful, rainy Nashville. Jeremy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brian, man. I'm excited to talk about what's coming up in the news cycle. It's going to be good stuff.
Yeah, we are getting more and more questions. I see them asked of us on Facebook. I see some emails, and I know a lot of people are excited about what's in store for our next cycle that begins in September, first use.
That's right.
But it'll be available, it'll start shipping out in June or sometime in that frame. Digital version usually at the end of May or so. So it's going to be hitting the shelves here pretty soon.
Before we know it, it's here.
So let me just ask you a few questions. We have about 15 minutes of our time together. Let me ask you, the first one is, why a news cycle? Why don't we just put one cycle out? I've been asked this question in the past. I'm sure you have. Why do we have a news cycle coming out? And in light of that answer, can we use any part of our current cycle? Will any of it still work for the next cycle?
The reason why I think the news cycle is particularly for kids is that kids are at the rapid changing developmental stages. And from preschool all the way up through preteen, they are changing so much. And this story is too important to tell only one time in one way. And as kids mature, they can they're going to have a different way to interact with the gospel, a different way to respond to the gospel. And so a kindergartner is going to have a much different interaction with the gospel at kindergarten than they are at third grade or fourth grade or fifth grade. And so going around another cycle just continues to drive that gospel into that child's heart. As they mature, they can have just a better and deeper response.
And some of the changes that we're going to be talking about would explain why we produce new content every 3 years and not just reuse the same content.
That's right. And we are learning. You know, we go through process and we learn stuff and we get feedback and we're constantly trying to improve our product and make it more user-friendly, more solid, and continue to ground that in the gospel within Scripture as a whole. And so we produce new content so that people can take advantage of the things we learn, but also to continue to adapt and make it real time as best we can.
And we can't do all the stories in one cycle.
Oh, and that's
we know
right.
There's some news stories I want to ask you about in a minute, but we also have content that we can't get to in a 3 year. It seems like a lot, 150 sessions, but when you think about the big story of the Bible, there's a lot you cannot get to.
Right.
So we're going to talk about it in a second.
So
is there anything for those of our viewers who use the current cycle? Is anything going to be able to carry over?
I think there are some pieces. The timeline is going to be very similar, but you got to figure about a third of those stories, as we're going to talk about in a minute, about a third of those stories are going to be new. So really you're going to want to start with all new stuff. And we try to make that affordable from the giant timelines and things that it's a one-time purchase, meaning you can purchase it one time for the whole cycle, the whole study plan. And so really you might confine some pieces that connect, but overall you're going to want to see new activity pages, new timelines, all the new stuff we're going to talk about in a minute. You're going to want to get on board with the new art, the new style that we've got. All of that's going to really tie in well to our new study plan.
So basically you have to start from scratch.
That would be the best plan,
But again, we have prices, and I think if people look at the cost of the Gospel Project versus other kids' materials, it is priced in line. It's not a higher cost.
Right.
It's reasonably priced, competitively priced, we would say.
Yeah, I think so.
And with that in mind, it's not a one-time, and you invest a lot of money, then you use it. So you mentioned the art. I know the Big Story Circle was really well received, especially in the kids space. What new visuals like that, what one-time purchase visuals are coming out the next cycle?
Yeah, of course. So I mentioned the timelines, and so we'll have a new giant timeline that'll go cover to cover, so to speak, Genesis to Revelation, a new timeline, a giant timeline with those same footprint of posters, those same specs. We'll also have small group timelines that are going to be updated to the new stories and the new art.
So similar feel with the linear nature.
Similar feel with those timelines, the linear piece of those. But we have two new pieces that are just going to be, they're beautiful, beautifully artful, just incredible. Graphical designs, and those two pieces are this. We're going to have a family line of Jesus tracing the lineage of Jesus, the genealogy of Jesus from Genesis, really all the way back to Genesis to Adam and Eve, all the way through as this corresponds with the Matthew and Luke accounts. And so you're going to see that. And so you're going to have this big oversized family line of Jesus. That's one. The other one, and that's going to be sold with the giant timeline.
Okay.
And so that's part of that giant timeline and genealogy of Christ poster pack. And then the other thing that's going to be sold with our small group timeline are these 4 incredibly beautiful biblical maps. And so we have four maps, 2 for Old Testament, 2 for New Testament, and it's just another way to tie in. We talk about Bible skills, and we talk about learning the history of how things fit together. And these maps are going to be a great way for kids to see real places on a map and go, oh, that's where that happened. I know where that is. I can find that not only on a map, but I can look on a globe now and say, okay, well, that's modern day Turkey or wherever that is.
And that really brings it to life. One of the things I've heard people with a concern, it's a valid concern, when we use the term story, some kids think that means made up.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe it necessarily has to be made up. I mean, we have news stories, although one will argue some of that's made up today. But that's a different story for a different time.
Right.
But we have this understandably concern that story can connote fake. And so these 2 resources, in my opinion, really help combat that and anchor in our kids' hearts. This is real. It really
stuff.
happened.
Absolutely.
Here's here's a map showing where it happened on the globe. And so, it's great.
And all the people that are involved.
Yeah, all the people.
Real people.
And of course, that's a big part of the Gospel Project, is showing how we're all moving toward Christ. So that's outstanding.
Yeah.
So all of the Gospel Project, the news cycle coming out, about 150 stories total. About a third of them are brand new. And even the ones that we're redoing, it's new content underneath.
Right.
That's important where everybody understands.
Yeah. It's not just getting copy and pasted in. We're
New
rewriting
activities,
it fresh, new Bible story
new videos.
videos, all that.
Okay. Of the third of the new stories, the brand new ones, we would say, are there any that kind of stand out to you that you're most excited about?
The one that I'm really excited about, we're incorporating the 23rd Psalm, I believe, this year, and so that one's going to be fantastic because it's just so iconic, Christian.
And we haven't done that yet. Here's a third cycle. It's my point. You can't cover it all. This is the third cycle, and we've never done the 23rd Psalm.
And I can't tell you how many, when I was in church ministry, how many older leaders would come to me and say, I was asking this child about, we're going to all say the 23rd Psalm, and most of the kids in the room didn't know it.
Yeah.
Well, and so being able to incorporate that in and seeing where that fits in the chronology is just going to be a great another tie-in. But the one that really stands out to me is the Sermon on the Mount. There's just so much practical but spiritual teaching that Jesus gives on that, and it's so well known. And again, we haven't been able to hit on that really.
And we won't exhaust it. It's going to be one session on that.
Yeah.
And we could do a whole unit. We could do a volume on the Sermon on the Mount. And so this just shows the tension that we have here in this building of putting together scope and sequences that cover this story and our need to give new ones every 3 years so we can cover more of this beautiful story. Okay, so with a few minutes left, what other changes then in general? We got kids leaders, I'm sure, watching right now or watch this on delay, and that's what they're sitting on the edge of their seat right now saying, all right, so throw it at me. What are some of the most notable changes? And we probably won't cover them all right now.
No, we won't.
But what are some of those noticeable changes that they can look forward to?
Yeah, for sake of time, we can't really hit on everything. But so one of the things, we're going to continue to build on some of the changes we made last year with some terminology updates. For one, we used to call a main point. Well, as you've mentioned to leaders before, I've heard you say it is that kind of misrepresents because it's an important point, but it's not the main point because the main point is really the Christ connection.
Exactly.
And so the story point, we're changing that terminology, main point to story point, so that it helps understand. Hey, what's the point of this story? Well, that's the story point. So we're updating that, and we changed some other vocabulary last year. We'll continue to update some of that vocabulary. Stronger application, Bible skills more integrated into the conversations, particularly with older kids and application.
And we heard a lot about that. That's a response to the great feedback we hear from the churches.
And then probably the most noticeable as far as things that we're just carrying over will be how we're integrating missions. Missions has been a big part of the Gospel Project. We're putting that into the Bible study hour now, that primary hour, as opposed to just being in the worship hour. But now, it's not going to just be a video every week. We'll have some videos. It won't be a video every week. It's going to be it's an entirely new strategy for us to have activities and prayer walks and different kinds of things that is really, really intentional that will carry from session to session over the course of units. And so it'll really tie together a missions emphasis.
That's really key because, the 3 hallmarks of the Gospel Project are story, culture, and mission.
Yeah.
You think of the gospel story, and then culture, how it changes us. It changes us individually and as a people.
Right.
And then mission, that we're here for a purpose. And so that was always, I think, a fair criticism, that our missions focus was in the extra hour of Bible study you would have to, or of worship that you would have to purchase adding on if you did a second hour. And so for us moving that into the main part, I think is truer to our mission.
Yeah, I do too.
Of the Gospel Project. Pardon that pun.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So a couple of more things. So we mentioned already new Bible story videos. So we're going to take some of our most popular art, but we'll be adding some new styles to those Bible story videos. We'll continue to have the preschool and the kids building on that.
Hey, paper bags. Are we keeping the paper bags?
I got to tell you, we're going to keep the paper bags.
There you go. I think 99% of our people will be very happy to hear that.
Yeah, we're going to keep the paper bags as a way to tell stories, just all storytelling. Just try to do some creative storytelling.
I love the paper bags.
Yeah, the paper bags are fun. One of the good things, if you're a kids user out there for kids material, now we're going to have motion videos. So choreography, motion videos within our kids' music.
For which songs?
For our primary 5 songs that go to our unit theme song, our key passage songs, all of those part of those 5 that are part of that core hour.
So it used to be 6, but now we're making it 5.
Right, now we're making it 5. Try to be a little more strategic about the way we theme songs and put things together.
And I heard a lot of people would often ask, hey, there's too much music, the kids can't learn it in time. So actually reducing it by 1 actually helps that now.
Yeah. And then building on that, we'll still have the lyric videos like we have in the past, but now we're going to have motion videos for leaders can just throw that on the screen. It'll have the lyrics on top, and they'll be able to use that and have built-in motions for kids who like to do that.
A lot of people asked about that as well. That's going to be a huge win.
Yeah, and then another video segment is brand new for us, which actually you know already because you're the star of the show.
Sorry for this one.
But in a way to continue to build on application. Again, we've heard that many, many times. We want to build application and help bridge the Bible story to application, to life application. And one of the ways we're doing that is a new video segment called Questions from Kids, where we take a question from a kid and then we answer that question in context of what the Bible story is teaching us and understanding about Jesus and all that. And then we pose a question back
at them
and help the teachers have a platform to begin a new discussion with what that means.
So sorry for who you're going to have to see on those videos. But I think it's a good strategy. It's replacing
the discussion
starter videos, which we heard quite a bit. Were fun. We liked kind of the cartoons involved and so forth, but it was hard for leaders to connect them and use them well.
Yeah.
So we hope that this is something that will connect better.
Yeah, I hope so. And so a couple other things that we're going to be rolling out is a Gospel Project Bible, classroom Bible. It's going to be paperback. It's not going to be the graphical, big picture Bible. That won't be that kind, but it'll be an affordable price point, and it'll be paperback. It's going to have the full text of Scripture in it from the CSB.
CSB, okay.
Yeah, and but it'll have some in the front matter. There will be some unit themes, and the maps are going to versions of the maps are going to be in there, and so there's going to be a Bible that churches can purchase for their classrooms that are at affordable price point, and really, again, building in those Bible skills. Now we're going to give you something that aligns with our current study plan, has some features in it that really connotes to those. Specifically. And then we also have a great new piece coming out. It's going to hit it's already hitting the printer. It's going to be available, I think, next month or maybe in May. But it's called Big Pictures Question and Answer from Kids. And this ties directly to, not just directly to our cycle, but just our overall brand, our overall idea of the Gospel Project. It's going to have over 70 big picture questions and answers all in one place, a kids version and a preschool version that churches, that parents can grab a hold of and work through these with their kids about learning these such important doctrines that we believe, but giving them in a way that helps leaders and parents talk to kids. There's going to be a poster version of that's got kind of the philosophy, the strategy. How do you see Jesus in the Old Testament? How do you see Jesus through the Bible? We say it, but how do we do that? How do we approach the Scripture? So it's that big picture question and answer has a feature called Seeing Jesus Through the Bible, and so that's going to be a great resource that is coming out really soon.
And then I imagine most people watching this are probably kids ministry leaders. That will help Bible study teachers, those in the classroom who may not quite understand this gospel centrality throughout the Scripture.
Right.
It'll give them a practical way to understand and begin.
Give them a vocabulary.
And with really older kids to start actually teaching that passing, they're old enough to handle that. So good.
That's right.
Okay, so as we wrap up, I know we've thrown a lot out there, and I know we've not covered all the changes, and I want people to continue to be involved and see some of these things as well, and I know we're going to be pushing these things out, showing more examples and so forth. So how can people, if they're not already engaged with some of the best ways to be in touch with what's going on with the Gospel Project for Kids, how can they do that?
Well, the way to get, as far as seeing real live right now, gospelproject.com/2018
That's right. That's where we have a sample
That's where we
session.
have the sample for all the age groups. So you can go right now and see all four-week samples for all age groups. And you can see all of that. That's going to show you the style, and that's going to show you the leader content, the flow. All of those things are going to be right there. So that's a great place to go. Other places to go are going to be our Facebook. We have a closed group, online Facebook community for the Gospel Project for Kids. And it's just the Gospel Project for Kids takes you to the page, and the group is connected. So those pages, that page and that group is connected together. But there's a closed group where we talk about, churches share. Hey, I was trying this. Hey, I tried this. How's this working? And we could just interact.
And they ask questions. I know you guys on your team, you respond pretty quickly.
Yeah, we try to be accessible.
Yeah.
We know that there's a lot out there of we don't want to have to phone in and get through customer service and all that, which you can always do. Their customer service team
when
is
you have
great.
a direct way to contact.
But this is a way that you can ask a question, not only for group consumption, but also our team will jump in and say, oh, well, here's some ideas, here's some things that we've got, help point you to links, those things like that.
And it's fun seeing people interact and help one another in that group. It's a community. It's a culture, as we talk about. So, hey, Jeremy, thanks for your time. And we'll try to go on after this. We'll try to go on and type in these links at the bottom of this video as one of the comments so that it's easier for people to find.
Yeah.
But, Jeremy, thanks so much. We're really excited about what's in store. We're praying that God continues to use the Gospel Project in amazing ways, and we hope that this has given you a few things to look forward to, and keep looking for more. We're going to keep sharing more as this stuff gets ready to release.